Along with you on this Thursday episode of The Exchange, joined by Charlie Evers, Marianne Michaels, First Lady of Dance, Martha Dowse, Kate Jacob, and Brenda Donegan, who's going to take us on another road trip in the great state of Ohio. Before we get to any of that, though, we need to mention our sponsors, as The Exchange is brought to you by the Ohio Neck and Back Pain Relief Centers, Scott M. Gray, D.C., across from the Marion Center between TSC and Kroger. Call 740-386-6580. And Bucyrus Placemats. To put an ad in, call Wayne, 419-562-8473. Located at 116 Wayne Avenue in Bucyrus. Also on the net at bucyrusplacemats.com. And we certainly thank them all. And now, as we do each and every day, we're going to head over to the man who made the groundhog famous in Ohio, Charlie Evers. Charlie?
All right. Something that's always fascinated me in Marion are the Lustron homes. Now, a Lustron home was made out of metal, and the paint was put on, apparently baked on, so they never had to be repainted. There's some on Bellefontaine Avenue. The Lustron home was made in Columbus, prefab, and they were going great guns, but they were depending on governmental loans to get their things rolling, and somehow they couldn't get a loan completed, and they had like 2,500 orders. And they went out of business, they went bankrupt. But they're still in Marion. There's one or two in Bucyrus also. If you go down Bellefontaine Avenue and look around, you'll see those metal homes. I often wondered, don't they get hit by lightning?
Maybe they have. Now, if a home got hit by lightning, would it sustain the hit?
No, not if it had a direct hit. It would melt.
The whole house?
Maybe not the whole house, but wherever the lightning hit. You know, that's a few million volts and many more amperes. And nothing can stand a direct hit.
What were the Lustron homes? Were they named for a person or something?
That was the name of the company. I don't know how it came about, but it was a very large company in Columbus at one time.
Went bankrupt.
Yep.
Belly up like so many others.
Probably called Lustron from the word luster.
Could
because
be.
That's what they looked like. They had a luster on them.
Yes.
That's a good one.
What street is it near?
It's, like at the end of Blaine or end of Olney, somewhere in that vicinity.
I'm on Girard and Bellefontaine.
Oh, okay. You're close.
Is your home made of metal, Martha?
Brick.
There you go.
Just take a magnet one of these days and go along these homes and you'll find it.
I've been there 54 years old, and my daddy bought it on sale at the courthouse for $4,000
Oh my goodness.
in 1954.
Wow.
And that's where you had your dance studio, right?
That's where I live. My studio's at 488 Girard.
Oh, okay.
It was a grocery store, and the president of the grocery store hung himself in the basement.
Is that right? You couldn't find it in a better place.
I know it. And I found his hook.
Oh, Lord. What?
There have been a number of things like that, Martha, that happened around Marion that I don't know.
Is he buried in the basement? Did they just bury him there? Or did
They
they
could
take him
have.
out?
Yeah, but they could bury him there, like you said, Charlie.
There was one person that chose the Hotel Harding and the upper floor to make an exit in a hurry.
Is that
A
right?
permanent exit, yes.
The things
No
we don't
kidding.
learn on
Oh.
exchange.
Martha's previous tenant hung himself and she found the hook. Why didn't they take the hook with them? I'll tell you what, poor gentleman.
You
It's
know,
not
my
funny, but
father,
we're laughing.
my father, my brother-in-law, and my uncle went in and saw the empty shelves there. And my dad said, Martha, Lou, I'm going to give you a knotty pine and a hardwood floor and mirrors. Do you know how much I paid him 60 years ago?
10,000.
$1 an hour,
Oh my.
60 years ago.
Of course, if you look at the price of hamburger then, even at 3 pounds for $1, you'd have to work quite a bit to get enough money to buy a hamburger at
That's
3 pounds for
right.
$1, yeah.
But we've worked in radio, Charlie. We know what it's like to work for $1 an hour.
I know it's like to eat Lance cookies, Lance peanuts.
Do what you can with what you can.
5-cent Cokes.
We know the wage is there. Take what you can get. My favorite type of meal, free. Now we're going to move on to one of my good pals who's going to take us on a day trip in Ohio, Brenda Donegan, with Brenda Donegan's Ohio. Brenda, take it away.
Well, actually, we're going to stay home today because it's close to Memorial Day, and I thought we might have a lot of visitors in the community. And besides that, you just don't like to go out and drive too much on holidays. At least we don't. So we have a lot of history in Marion, and thinking of the holiday, Memorial Day, and what it means, I thought we would visit the Marion Cemetery first, where we have the World War II monument. It's a beautiful, beautiful, I guess you would just call it a figure. And the money for that came from donations, private donations from corporations and different fundraisers. And it was dedicated on Memorial Day back in 2001. All of the Marion County veterans who served during World War II are listed on that. And I understand that they keep surfacing that there are still veterans who people have come forward and claim that they served as well. So, you know, our World War II veterans did pay an extremely high price for the preservation of the freedoms that we enjoy to this day. And I was so happy when I heard that they were going ahead with this monument, because many of them did pay the ultimate sacrifice, and we owe them a great deal. We owe them that honor. And when they left home, they were supposed to have experienced the war that was to end all wars, and we know that that didn't happen because we're still involved in 2 wars today. So also at the cemetery is the Soldier and Sailors Memorial Chapel, and it was built with taxpayer money. Back in the day, the commissioners put a 1 mil levy on, and the cost to build that chapel was $14,939.
My goodness.
Yeah. And I'm going to read you the things that the chapel is made of. It's built with stone, iron, and slate, and the doors are of native oak. There's an Italian maple lining the interior from the base to the windows, and on these tablets are inscribed the names of the more than 2,800 men who went to the Civil War from Marion County, and the soldiers who were residents when the levy was passed. So it's, if you've never been inside of it, it is a piece of art, quite a work of workmanship. Very, very, very nice. Also wanted to mention that it's listed on the National Register of Historical Places. Another item in the cemetery, see, you don't have to leave and go anywhere, you just kind of just keep walking, is the receiving vault. And it was constructed in 1873, and its cost was $2,500. Very, very reasonable. But then back in 1873, I'm sure that was a lot of money. And we also know that the vault was a temporary resting place for President Harding after he died. There was no permanent memorial in Marion at the time, and so he was there, and soldiers stood around the vault night and day and guarded it while he was laying there at rest. And then also after the memorial was built, he and Florence bodies were moved over to the Harding Memorial. The vault is also on the National Historic Register of Historic Places. The next item in the cemetery that I'd like to talk about, I think I talked about once before, is the Merchant Monument, which has been featured on Ripley's Believe It or Not, and that's the revolving ball. This 5,200 piece of granite, some members of the family noticed a couple of years after it had been put in place that there was an unpolished place on the ball and that it actually was moving. Nobody's ever been able to tell us why or where, but it just seems to rotate just a little bit, and that rough place shows up just a little farther up on the axis of it as it moves up. Not totally in the cemetery, but there also are the Law Enforcement Memorial and the Firefighters Memorial. The local Fraternal Order of Police decided that they needed to honor their law enforcement officers who had lost their lives in the line of duty about the turn of 2000, in the year 2000, and began raising money to get the project going. And each year they hold a memorial service there. It's quite interesting, quite somber, really, when you think about it, that they have put down their lives, just as our soldiers do for our country when they go to fight in the wars. And then in October 2006, the firefighters followed suit and got together the money for a fireman's memorial, also at the edge of the cemetery. Now, if you go down the street just a little bit, you can go to Veterans Memorial Park. And this is one of my favorite places in Marion. Marion was fortunate enough to have the very first Veterans Park honoring with monuments of all wars from the War of 1812 through the global war on terrorism. And it has a monument for each war. And the land is well landscaped, manicured. And it's kind of bone-chilling and yet heart-thumping sight when you see all the flags that they put out around the holidays, up and down the sidewalks and around the memorials. No entrance, no fees. There'll be plenty of parking. And it's a place that all of us in Marion should be proud of and should support and attend their events there. And then you go across the street to the Harding Memorial. Of course, we know that that was built after Harding passed away. He died in 1923, and I understand that some school kids here in Marion helped raise money with pennies and whatever to get that going. I don't think they paid for it completely, but it was dedicated in 1931 by President Herbert Hoover. And then, you know, before I leave, I always like to give you a tip about some place for lunch or dinner. And Marion has a lot of chain restaurants. I guess that's what you want to call them. So I kind of would like to suggest 3 that are more family owned, if I'm allowed to mention specifics.
I think so.
Okay. Well, for fish and seafood, I would go to O'Michael's, especially if you like yellow perch. If you like Italian fare, then I would choose the Warehouse or Stumpo's. And then for pulled pork or chicken, sweet potato casserole, and macaroni and cheese, the OK Cafe.
Sounds good. You know, and I was just thinking, you know, most everybody here lives in Marion. We don't highlight it enough. It's a great place to live.
It is.
And it truly is, and it should be a stop on anybody's itinerary, and we who live here should pay much more attention to it. And it's going to lead us into the current event this week. Interesting you chose that, Brenda, because the population growth in the city of Marion and Marion County can be attributed to more prisoners, according to new data from the U.S. Census Bureau. In March, the Bureau released population head counts for every incorporated area in the county. At that point, gains of 284 and 1,519 were reported for the county and city, respectively. However, demographic profiles show that without an influx of inmates, the city's non-institutionalized population actually slipped to 31,725 from 33,206, a reduction of about 4.5%. 1 in 5 people counted in the city of Marion are in the North Central Correctional Institution. Marion Correctional Institution or another detention facility, that's where they're housed, 1 in 5. The county's free population fell by 179 to 65,724, the data shows. Very interesting that we showed growth back in March, and when you actually break it down, we lost people if you don't count the prisoners. What do you think of that, Marianne?
Well, I didn't even realize that you count the prisoners, but I guess they live here, so you have to count them. But I think the reason that the population has declined here in Marion is because some of the really nice factories have gone, you know, like Tecumseh and Whirlpool. Well, no, Whirlpool's still here.
Shuffle.
The Shuffle, Marion Power Shuffle, yes.
Sure.
And so I think that's the reason it's declined.
Well, you know, with this group here today, I didn't want to bring that fact up to say anything bad about Marion. I thought this was a great group, a great time. What can we do to revitalize this town? Let's just throw a few things out here that we could do. Industry's hard to bring to town, but what can we do on a local level, local people, everyday people, to make this town what it was or get going in the right direction where we're not losing population. What do you think, Charlie?
Well, this is a topic that's been brought up quite a bit, especially with the Chamber of Commerce, on how to improve things or revitalize downtown. I don't think we'll ever have a downtown that would even be close to what it was some years ago. One of our deterrents downtown came about through the Streetscape program when they eliminated 80 parking places. And nowadays, people are not learning to do parallel parking, and so they kind of, look for parking lots, which there are some downtown, of course. But it does create a little difficult situation down there. At one time, 60 years ago or 50 years ago, every storefront was filled with, all kinds of stores, clothing and shoes and restaurants and everything. But Marion's no different than all the other towns in Ohio and elsewhere in the country. The center of town's slowly fading away. Also, look at all the new homes that have been constructed outside the city limits. And our schools, look at all the schools we've torn down and have consolidated within Marion. And so, yes, our population is down. But if we would expand our city limits, which is a very touchy situation, like you're not going to come out in our township, it's very possessive. And unless that happens, Marion's going to stay about the same.
There were community leaders, though, that would sink money into Marion that tried to spearhead things in Marion. My goodness, Charlie, you did a lot of that. I don't see a whole lot of that anymore. Who's going to take charge? Who's going to lead this?
There needs to be leadership, that's for sure. I mean, there have been good attempts at that, but, here we are.
And I'm not talking about a mayor either. I'm not talking about a politician. I'm talking about a community-minded person who doesn't want to leave, who wants to stay and build something that's great. I always say 44 presidents, and one of them came from this city. I mean, you know how many cities there are just in Ohio, let alone the country? I mean, come on, this is something to be proud of, Marianne, right?
Yes, it's definitely something to be proud of, but now everything seems to be going out, to the malls. I mean, malls are popular in every city now, and that's where everything is being built, in the malls.
But do you think we really, I'm not even necessarily talking about rebuilding downtown Marion. I'm just talking about, in general, creating an up mood to stay in Marion, wherever. If you want to go out to Route 95, go out to Route 95. But how can we make that a more positive experience?
That's a quandary, it really is. And I noticed that, around Marion, a lot of the areas, the housing has deteriorated so much. I just look where I used to live, and it's not nearly as nice as it was when I lived there. And I find that true in a lot of areas, a lot of streets in Marion. The housing has been, really not kept up, and it really spoils the look of the city. And I don't know what you do to combat that. I don't have any advice.
Brenda, one of the things you did when you worked for the Marion Star that I liked a lot was you went out and you did a lot of work on trying to find happy stories, good things going on in Marion. What do we do to get in a mood of, away from if it bleeds, it leads, that a lot of newspapers and broadcast outlets, why can't we get more focused on the good here? It used to be that way.
Well, people who remembered Marion back when had some very happy memories. But, it's been my experience that people in general just don't support things that go on here in Marion, whether it's at the Palace or like Celebrate Summer or the International Festival that they had at OSUM recently, even the Marion Midget Football, the softball. There's just all kinds of things that go on here in Marion that out-of-town people come in and support better than our local people do. I know that we have a great deal of unemployment here, and that could be part of the problem, but still, there's the Relay for Life coming up, and there's the car show for kidney dialysis, and then there's Celebrate Summer with all the antique and classic cars coming to town in late June. And not to mention the county fair and all this. And sometimes at the county fair, I get upset. My husband will agree. I see children who are writing rights and having all kinds of things, and I think that maybe the family's priorities are wrong, but then children are entitled to a good time too, so I'll be quiet about that. But Marion just needs to get on the ball and support the city. There are many fundraisers, and it doesn't even have to be a fundraiser, just your attendance at a child's baseball game shows that you have an interest in the city. So I just really don't know what the answer might be. I just say keep trotting away and see what happens.
What's the condition of the I Can campaign? Is that still in existence?
Can do.
Can do, I'm sorry, can do.
Yeah, that's still there. They're still trying to bring in industry to
Industry.
Marion. We already have, of course, our industrial park with many new industries that are supplying parts to Honda and other places. A lot of people overlook that because they don't go out on Fairground and drive down that new industrial way.
You know something that's interesting to me, and I certainly industry's a big one to bring in, and I know Can Do focuses on that, and politicians certainly do. But one of the things I've noticed in Marion, and maybe I'll get some flack for saying this, but I was born here, so I feel right in saying it. As Brenda was talking about, people don't attend things. I think there is a lot of, this is my ball game, these are the people I want. It's a very secluded society a lot of times, and people don't feel like trying to break that glass wall. I have noticed that so many times. I'm not going to name any event because I don't want to knock anybody, but I've noticed that events will be held that are supposed to be encompassing of the city, but they don't gear them for the people of the city. They don't realize what the population is interested in. They don't, I don't know. There are just certain things that are geared for certain people, and you're going to get those same people to come every time unless you have a broader appeal.
Can you be specific?
Well, I think I've seen a lot of wine tastings in Marion, and I think when you have a 10% unemployment rate and you're charging $50 a head on a wine tasting, that you're not appealing to the everyday Marion citizen.
That's interesting. I don't know anything about the wine tasting.
That's just one of those things. Well, anything, I don't know, downtown is fun and I think they're doing a great job, but I don't think it's too expensive for some people to come. And why would you go? I'm not saying a wine tasting is bad. I like wine. I like wine tasting. But you can't charge $50 and expect to have
well, maybe that was a fundraiser, though.
Could have been,
Yes.
but are you trying to involve the people in the community? You can't say if the people don't show up. There's a reason they didn't show up. Martha, good Lord, nobody's been more involved in community spirit than you. What do you think of the town now? And
Well,
the
do
thing?
you know we don't have no charity balls? No
That's true.
more.
That's right.
And I think that's terrible. That was such a good deal. My dance club had 25 years of dance. Ron Scheider was sheriff, and I went for 9 years. He was sheriff 9 years. And we raised over $90,000 for Children's Hospital Leukemia Fund. And I'm so proud of that. And George Brown was at one of the dances. He says, Martha Manesi, I'll give you $100 if you'll dance with me.
See, that's what people used to do. That's what they were. Kate, we've
That
got
was so nice of him.
Kate, we've got 2 minutes left, and it's a long ball. But 21 years old, what do you foresee for Marion? What do you see now? Do you stay in town on a Friday night?
I think that, I've been in Marion for 22 years now and been away for school, but I think that one of the big problems that we have is the education system, and we don't value education as much as we used to, and so then you grow up not having a strong sense of pride in your community, and then it's just a vicious cycle. It just keeps adding to the problems of our community because we're not getting as good of an education as we could and should get, and then we just end up both affect, like you have the poor attitudes in the community reflect how our school systems aren't as good anymore, and then it goes right back to the community, and something needs to be fixed in that balance to make it better.
You know, it's interesting, though, I think that comes back to money, too.
Everything
does.
comes back to
Absolutely,
money.
comes back to, you've got to make it more affordable if you want people to come. I mean, I'm going to wrap up on this note, but I got my entire education through Marion City Schools from K through 12, and it has always been greatly displeasing to me that kids in Marion City now pay for their books. As crazy as that sounds,
And
they didn't for a long time.
athletics and band
Pay to
and
play.
theater, I think it's sad. I really do think
You
that's sad.
taught there 30
Yes,
years,
yes.
absolutely.
And, yeah, that's sad.
That's a tough
But a lot of it is economics. And, you know, very few young people ever stay in Marion. They go other places, and that's
That's the truth.
kind of revealing too.
We got to get out of here on this Thursday. If you have a question for the mailbag, join us on Facebook under The Exchange Marion, or email them to us at irmcommunication@gmail.com. Going to be back with you on Friday. Thanks, Brenda.